Right.
Exactly. Hey, this is Sam and Danushi, and you're listening to Bell Hooks and Jars on Radio Fodder.
On this show, we use our giant brains and our pop culture
Big brains.
knowledge to connect our passion for gender theory and pop culture stuff that's been going on. So we wanted to introduce you and each other to ideas in gender studies and also to talk about like what's been going on in the media.
A little bit of gossip.
Exactly.
So my name is Danushi, and I am famously a gender studies enjoyer, and I am currently researching like the psychological, social, and linguistic constructions of endometriosis, which is actually a really painful disease where cells from like the lining of the uterus go elsewhere in the body, and it's a very under-researched area. And so, yeah. I'm an academic, if you will, and now I'm going to hand over to our lovely co-host, Sam. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Sam. I'm also famously a gender studies enjoyer, and I'm also famously an endometriosis endurer. So I have a very keen interest in Danushi's research. I'm studying musicology. Pop musicology. My honors thesis is going to be about Taylor Swift. So yeah, also I had a dream last night that I met Taylor Swift.
Wow.
So yeah, also you were there, Danushi.
Wow.
We like went on a holiday to the beach and then
no stop, and she was there.
She was there. Joe Alwyn, Aaron Dessner, and Jack Antonoff were all there.
Wow.
And I struck up a conversation with Joe, and then Joe was like, you should meet Taylor. And I gave her a copy of my zine.
And then
and she started crying.
Did Joe also say we invite you to be part of a throuple?
No, but I'm not.
It was implied.
I'm not interested in a throuple.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
A couple? Or just a friendship?
I'm Madame Steal Your Girl in this situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's up. We're gonna go to a song now. This is our first song on the show. This is Circle the Drain by Soccer Mummy.
That was Circle the Drain by Soccer Mummy. Mummy, sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry?
That's exactly right.
So, Sammy, do you want to tell me about what's been going on?
What has been going on? So it's week 2 of the semester, getting back into things, getting back into life. Famously, I had an awful year last year, which resulted in me not finishing any of the subjects I started last year. So I've really just been like trying to keep on top of everything. And
you've been doing so well.
Oh, thank you, bestie. I've been trying.
You're welcome.
But
you have been. This is me trying.
That's what I've been up to. I've been like, so I'm only doing 3 subjects. That's been good. And I'm doing subjects that really pop off. They slap. I'm really enjoying them. So I'm doing Gothic fictions, Romancing the Medieval, and Sex, Death, and the Ecstatic in Music, which started week 1 strong with readings on Sisu and Kristeva talking about Lacanian and French psychoanalytic feminist theory. So that really went hard and I really enjoyed that.
Just quickly, if there's listeners that just heard words just then, all I can say is me too.
I'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah. Sammy will do some great show notes. Sammy's last year was an academic non-practicing, and now they're really getting back into, getting into the studies.
Yeah. What about you, Danushi? What have you been up to?
So as I previously said, I'm working on my thesis on how people with endometriosis talk about their symptoms and their experiences. And so our interview project has just been sent to ethics. And so we're waiting to hear back. Hopefully they're like, you're all ethical, you're good to go. It gives us the green light. And so in the next few months, we're just going to be interviewing people, having little chin wags with endometrious endurers. And then after, I'll just like transcribe and analyze those interviews and hopefully get published. Amazing. What's something you've enjoyed this week?
Well, I've been watching a lot of Kardashians and I'm really enjoying that. I'm really enjoying pretending that like I'm watching it because I'm like, doing my media studies, thinking about things, but I'm just enjoying it. Let's be real.
Yeah. Keeping up. Where are you up to right now?
Okay, I'm up to Caitlin's just come out. They've just had the episode about Caitlin.
Is this around the Vanity Fair cover or before or after?
Before the Vanity Fair cover.
Okay.
So, yeah, that was a very interesting episode with how everybody dealt with that. Yeah, so that's what I've been enjoying, really. What about you? What have you been loving? Live, laugh, loving.
Okay, I didn't want to get here, but I am also famously getting through a breakup. And last week,
going straight in, episode 1. Let's talk about it.
We only have an hour, so we can't get into we can't go
in deep.
Yeah, we can't get into the shambles of my love life, but because of that, I've been really enjoying Friends. Just seeing all my pals, opening up my heart again to be happy with all my besties, such as you. And
thank you,
I had a great week learning how to be happy with myself again.
I love that. Yeah. I love that for us. That's so important.
Speaking of love, I think we can introduce our next song, which I would say
what is it, Danushi? Tell us.
I would say it is probably one of the greatest love ballads of all time.
I think it's one of the greatest songs of all time.
Yeah.
Danushi, what are we playing?
We're playing Stars Are Blind by
Paris Hilton. Woo! That was Stars Are Blind by Paris Hilton. Welcome back. You're listening to Bell Hooks and Jars with Sam and Danushi on Radio Fodder. Stars Are Blind. What a great song. And it really brings us into our next segment, which is our bite-sized theory section. Every week, one of us, this week it's me, Sam, are going to talk about some gender theory that we've been reading about and thinking about. And then we're going to throw it to the pop culture that we're also been thinking about that connects. So this week, Stars Are Blind by Paris Hilton. If Paris Hilton is known for anything other than her girl bossery, businesswomanery, and DJing, she's quite famous for her voice and her accent. Yeah. I've been thinking recently, we've been thinking her accent and accents like hers are really like...
To me, it's very geographically contextualized. Like I just think of LA and I just think of short skirts. I think of Pink. And Clueless. I think of blonde hair, which is all very interesting. I don't think it's by chance that those are the visuals that come to my mind when I think of
Paris Hilton's accent. And so
that's hot.
But you know what isn't hot? What we're going to be talking about today, which is linguistic prejudice and linguistic misogyny.
That's not hot.
Paris's accent, technically in the linguistics, is called Val speak. It's also commonly known as the Valley Girl accent and any number of derogatory, pejorative descriptions of it. People say it's annoying, it makes you sound unprofessional, etc., etc. So what is linguistic prejudice? It's not like...
What is it? Tell me.
What is it? Yeah, it's not like generally mean things, but this is a quote from Pierre Habasque. It refers to adverse language used about particular social groups, as well as to adverse opinions about the accent or dialect of particular social groups. That could also not just apply to this, also apply to AAVE, Australian, Indigenous vernacular English. I don't know the technical term for that, but that is a dialect of Australian English. And any other manner of dialects and sociolects, which are dialects for a social group.
Can I just add in a little bit of a disclaimer here? So I think it's important that as you were alluding to just then, we understand and are completely aware of the fact that these prejudices are layered and so it's like race and gender and all of those layers of intersectionality. But I think today we're particularly looking at it in terms of the Valley Girl, and that it obviously has very Caucasian overtones. That's just what we're looking at. It's not
Yeah.
to say that other things don't exist. We're just choosing to focus on that. And
Yeah.
so please continue, Sammy.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. Like today's conversation is going to be a very a very white Caucasian look at oppression. But at the same time, I think that that's really good for a small sample size in this situation, because Val speak was originally spoken by predominantly white middle to upper class women in California. There's less intersection, so there's less to talk about in a way.
Exactly.
And then linguistic misogyny, what's that? That is, again, Pierre Habasque's quote here, stigmatizing an individual's linguistic practices because they are possibly wrongly perceived as feminine.
Mm-hmm.
So
do you want to give a little bit of background into who Habasque is? Is that something you're aware of? Because I have no idea who that is.
He's a French linguist who has published, he's done a lot of looking at vowel speak, and he's published in, I read several of his articles in Anglophonia, which is, it's a French academic journal looking at English language linguistics. Yeah. So here's a lot of where I got my academic sources today, and I will again link them in the show notes. So
content warning for French academia. Content
warning for the French. Val speak, what is it? I think we sort of think about it as, you know, the sort of, oh my God, kind of.
Oh God.
That
like
kind of,
totally.
Like totally. Well, that is like quite right. So there's like 3 markers that they talk about.
Tell me about them. What are the 3 markers? What's one?
The 3 markers. Number 1, the California vowel shift, or CVS, which was
not to be confused with the pharmacy CVS.
Exactly. CVS, not the pharmacy, the California vowel shift. If you're looking at a IPA vowel map, which Danushi, I don't know if you're familiar with.
I have absolutely no idea what that means.
Okay, so
I'm guessing you're going to tell me.
Great. The IPA is the International Phonetic Alphabet, and it is a alphabet group of symbols that basically like marks out every sound that a human voice can make. And you can map vowels on it by how low, high, and forward and back they are, which kind of looks like it's like a square with a right angle triangle on the front. So back low vowels would be like or.
And what makes that back and low?
So the tongue is sitting, the bulk of the tongue is sitting back in the mouth, and it's lower down.
Okay.
And whereas something like E, the bulk of the tongue is very far forward and up. E.
Okay. So if would it be right to say that map is almost like it's about the position of your tongue?
It is, yes.
Oh, did you say that already? Anyway.
I don't think so, but
yeah.
But yeah. So the California vowel shift, it made some vowels were turned into diphthongs, which is where you've got 2 vowel sounds that slide into one another to represent like one phoneme, which is...
What is an example of that?
Well, in the California vowel shift, we got the O vowel in words like totally and toenail.
Right, so it's like the O and the U, is that correct?
It's not quite a U, but there is, I will link in the show notes the article talking about the California vowel shift, where you can see the IPA transcription of it. And then also the I vowel lowered and went back. So it went from I to E. So if we're putting those 2 together, totally betchin'.
So that's interesting how like just sounds culturally shifted. It's
exactly
interesting.
And so there's the California vowel shift. Long ago there was the Great Vowel Shift, as Middle English was turning into Modern English. So that's how a lot of how our our dialects ended up sounding the way they are. So those are kind of the markers of California vowel shift. The other markers of vowel speak are creaky voice, also known as vocal fry. So that's the
uncut jams and things
exactly.
like that.
No spoilers, Danushi. And
sorry.
HRT, not hormone replacement therapy. It's high rising terminal. CVS and HRT, like I was so confused at first reading these. And then I had to like be like, what? High rising terminal. Okay. So that's when the end of the sentence goes up. It kind of sounds like da 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 da. So it's also called up talk. And there's a YouTube video called Does Up Talk Make You Up Chuck?
Okay.
Yeah. Which I found very interesting.
Oh, okay. So up talk, would you say that's usually like when you're signaling the end of a question, but then you start using it for when you're
anytime.
Just sentence. Okay.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit of a example of that.
Well, going back to the Julia Fox example.
Yeah.
She's at the beginning, she says, I mean, maybe.
Right.
That's kind of, but that's also kind of a question, but it is high rising terminal. The end of it's rising up at the end of the word or the end of the sentence. Those are the markers of vowel speak.
Let's give a quick recap. So it was the vowel shift.
California vowel shift, which, you know, we can hear that in totally betchen and to the max. Not to the max, to the max.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not Karl Marx.
Then we had the
Marx. And the vocal fry or creaky voice, as linguists call it.
Like
and
that.
Like that. And high rising terminal or up talk. Shall we throw to a song?
Let's throw to a song. What song are we throwing to?
A song that's very important to this conversation, which is Britney Spears' Oops, I Did It Again. Enjoy.
Hey, this is Sam and Danushi, and you're listening to Bell Hooks and Jazz on Radio Fodder. That was Oops, I Did It Again by Britney Spears. Free Britney and then free everyone else that's under really bad conservatorships. I think
generally conservatorships, you know, they sound fascist.
Free everyone.
Yeah. So before we were talking about vowel speak, I've given you the details of what it is, and now we're going to talk about like what people think about it. So this linguist at Stanford, Penny Eckert, she was just getting like, so she hated vowel speak. She hated vocal fry especially so much. And it was, you know, she was saying it was grating to her ears when she heard presenters on TV using it. So she did an informal study with her students. And what she learned from this study was that nobody cared. Nobody cared as much as she did about vocal fry. And she is an older linguist, you know, who's in the academy, and she realized as a linguist, why did she care so much? So she replicated that poll by doing a study of 500 adults. And from that study, she found that only 40 people cared. And generally, they were older men.
Interesting.
So from looking at those stats, it made her have like a, you know, an inner reckoning about it and be like, why do I care so much? And then, as well as that, another linguist, Jane Gaia Fujita, who's an associate professor at NYU's Tisch School of Arts, she was saying, she said that she has a hesitancy to criticize these trends because they're prevalent among young women. And as I think she was a vocal coach and like she knows a lot about linguistics, she felt that if we're like getting so aggressive and about these characteristics that are among young women, what is it if not misogyny? Yeah.
Which is, I think, the main reason why we are kind of doing this episode is to like question why we have this belief system.
Yeah, exactly. And question why people get so mad about it. Like, my personal belief is I don't care how people talk, but I'm sure I have internal biases when I hear people's accents. But I'm not going to go into the Facebook comments and be like, you make me want to vomit, you know?
Yeah.
Another person talking about this was Lisa Davidson, who is a linguist from NYU. I'll link this article also in the show notes. She says, one explanation is that linguistic prejudice is one of the last, quote unquote, acceptable prejudices out there. If you're, say, an upper middle class educated person in the Northeast of the US, you try not to say anything overtly racist or sexist, but you can say whatever you want about people's accents, and that's totally fine. I think that's a really interesting takeaway point here. And then Davidson also says, why is it annoying? Because we like to find something that's annoying about women.
Interesting. And like, I think because it's about a voice or an accent, which although they're attributed to identities, it exists separately and outside of like people and groups, as in it can be shared, and it's and because of that, I think we can critique it under the guise of like respectability politics.
Yes.
And it's very tied to this idea of professionalism. And
absolutely,
it's interesting that the idea that we've become, I guess, more PC about certain things, but the idea of like accents and how people dress and all of that's attributed to respectability, we feel free to police.
I think part of that is like, there's this idea sometimes the way people dress and the way people talk exists in a vacuum.
Elaborate on that.
You know, if somebody loves to pick apart the way people talk, they could defend that with, well, I'm not criticizing them, I'm criticizing the way they talk.
Yeah.
But when it gets down to it, sociolects and dialects come from people that have influence of race, class, gender, even sexuality. Because that's the other thing in this situation. A lot of this conversation focuses on women, but these linguistic markers are also used by gay men, especially. Leading on from that, not only do people really attack women, but men speak with these characteristics too. So Chomsky, Noam Chomsky, King, he uses a lot of vocal fry in his speech. And so does Ira Glass, who's the presenter of This American Life on NPR. And he actually did an episode talking about, or a segment talking about vocal fry, because another person on NPR was getting a lot of hate comments, one would say, because she speaks with a lot of vocal fry. And then bringing it back to, he was saying, I speak with vocal fry and nobody cares.
Yeah.
Not only does nobody care, but Habask talks about in his paper on an episode of Family Guy that when it comes to the California vowel shift, it's not just that people don't care when men use it, but it actually makes men sound more confident. People perceive men to sound more confident when they use those markers.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting. Having listened to all that, and as the accent is so connected to, one might say, the idea of the bimbo, let's throw to another song. This is Coconuts by Kim Petras.
That was Coconuts by Kim Petras. Welcome back to Bell Hooks and Jars on Radio Fodder. And you're with Sam and Danushi.
Hey, bestie. So we're back.
I am.
Now that we've given some theory, I'm gonna. We
now it's time for the gossip part.
It's time for the gossip. It's time to talk about women's rights and women's wrongs.
Wrongs, exactly.
Which, if you support women's rights but not women's wrongs, like, I don't think you're a real feminist.
It sounds a lot like misogyny.
sounds like misogyny to me. These are jokes, just clarifying.
Yeah.
With all that, it comes to the conversation that everybody's been having recently. Everybody, people online have been having recently, not everybody.
Yeah.
So, Julia Fox. Can you tell me a bit about Julia Fox, Danushi?
Yeah. So Julia Fox was our muse this week because they've just been social climbing, and that's so good. That's so good for her. Like, she I think she's really has been an artist for a while. I think an artist and a thinker. So she's had some photography books. She's had some art that she made with her own blood, I think.
On silk. She painted with her own blood on silk.
Yeah. So a lot of her art is about, I think, being a survivor.
And also just being, very much about her body and her power.
Yeah. Which I think is very much related to her idea of being a muse. I think this idea of being a mannequin, a body. And it's really interesting that she has like the tattoo on her back that looks like a cello, which I think is a play on the shape of her body.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. Like, just that she is using her body to communicate, but she's also, and here's a great segue, she's using her body to communicate, but also her vowel speak.
Yeah, she is. She really is. So the interview on Call Her Daddy, the podcast, where she's asked what a muse is, and she says that she thinks she was Josh Saftey's muse.
Give us a rendition.
Yeah, a little, maybe. I mean, I was Josh Saftey's muse and he wrote Uncut Gahms. I mean, things like that. We'll insert the audio here.
Would you consider yourself Ye's muse?
Yeah, a little, maybe.
What is a muse?
I mean, I was Josh Saftey's muse when he wrote Uncut Gahms.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like things like that. Like I think people make it seem a little more dramatic.
I probably didn't do it completely correctly.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Is she speaking vowel speak? What do you think, Danushi?
Well, I think there's definitely a lot of vocal fry in there. And there's, again, a lot of the uptalk and that specific intonation. And it is interesting that that specific clip was picked up, because I was actually listening to that whole clip about her and Kanye, which is like a 6-minute long clip. And she is insightful, and she talks about how they met and what their relationship is like, and she's quite honest, and like I was very interested in what she was saying. And upon like revisiting the clip, I'm like, I don't even know how people picked up on it, being honest.
Yeah.
Because I really don't think it's like, maybe it's just I've watched too much Kardashians that like, this is just how people speak to me, or just enough. Exactly. Like it is extremely interesting why this specific bit was picked up by the algorithm. When, I don't know, like I thought she was captivating. Like again, it was the Call Her Daddy podcast. So it was just like, they were just talking about she was just talking about her relationship with Kanye. And I found that to be, I don't know, like a little into their world. I was more captivated by what she was saying than how she was saying it.
Exactly. Yeah. You're very right. She is speaking with vowel speak markers. So the high rising terminal, California vowel shift, especially in Gahms, Uncut Gahms. And Gahms. And also the vocal fry on Gahms. But the interesting thing that I've seen people talking about online is that, she's from New York. Why does she speak like this?
Oh, true.
Yeah, which I think is very interesting, because these days, I don't think, this is just my opinions, my vibes, I don't think that something like this kind of an accent has as much to do with geography as it used to, because we can hop on Netflix and watch Kardashians, and we're constantly flooded with accents like these online and in the media. We both have Val-speak characteristics in our voices, even though personally I've never been to California, don't want to go.
No. I don't think that would be good for us, just for a multitude of reasons. Yeah.
And, you know, again, this idea of professionalism. I've screenshotted some comments of what people had to say about her accent. And I think, you know, given all that we've just talked about with her work and her art, people said, so here's one commenter, "These women make me feel like a rocket scientist for real." And that's good. When I screenshotted this had 2.6 thousand likes.
Wow.
And then from somebody else, "It's like watching two 8th graders trapped in early 30-year-old bodies having a conversation.
Right.
Her voice makes Kim's sound like a beautiful music." I don't think her voice is that different to Kim's, to be honest.
No.
And then here's another one. "I lost real life brain cells hearing them have a conversation. I think I can learn more from an actual child than this video." Wow. Really, not even trying to pretend that we're not being sexist in this situation. Like, even the idea of two 8th graders trapped in 30-year-old bodies, like, this accent has been connected to young women. And what does the media love to do? The media loves to hate things young women love.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And I honestly don't think she's as stupid as everybody acts like she is. And now that she and Ye have broken up, she had some excellent things to say. My favorite was that she said about their public relationship, "We're in a pandemic. Give people something to talk about. Do your fucking service. Do your job." I think that is so funny.
And that's exactly what she's done. And hearing that makes me think in a similar way to Paris Hilton. There's a non-zero chance that she's putting this on, which, like, it doesn't matter if she's putting it on or not, but it's more to the fact that, again, because of the ways in which that accent is perceived, it gives her a certain amount of, not exactly social capital, but I think she is very intelligently weaponizing the box that she's put in. Like, if people again think that she's a dumb woman, like, she's like, well, I am going to be a dumb woman. Not that she is.
And also, I think that, like, at the end of the day here, who's won? Because everybody knows who Julia Fox is now. Her relationship with Ye might be over, but everybody knows her name and everybody knows what her voice is. So as a celebrity whose voice is so important to that part of her celebrity, like, she has won here.
So that's like what I've been thinking about a lot this week is, this is about Julia Fox, like, she's a celebrity, a white woman, blah blah blah, but I think it's this idea of undermining someone's voice that's extremely important. I think that's like the crux of what we're talking about today, because what happens when we stigmatize the voice, because like, I think the two things that we as people have is our body and our voice. And so, like, if we stigmatize those things, you render people almost voiceless. And I've been actually thinking a lot about how we can kind of look at this in a psychoanalytical way. So some people read hysteria as like the silent woman who must then talk about their emotions. And if we take the Val-speak woman or person, if we take Val-speak as like the loud woman, then society likes to read that as the dumb woman. So the silent woman is hysterical and the loud woman is dumb. So where does that leave us? Like, that just creates such a tight boundary for what femininity is, what femininity can be, and how femininity is read.
And I think also another element of this is that if we can discount what somebody is saying based on how they're saying it, then we don't have to listen to what they're saying at all.
Exactly. So I think that's the big takeaway here, is that what are we left with if people don't take our voice seriously?
Absolutely. Now, having discussed all that, we're going to throw to our last song of the show that really began the popular taking down of girls with this accent, and that is Frank and Moonzapper's classic tune, Valley Girl. That was Valley Girl by Frank and Moonzapper. You're listening to Bell Hooks and Jars with Sam and Danushi on Radio Fodder. So to round out what we've been chatting about today, what do we think about all of this? You can contact us at you can DM our Instagram at bell_hooks_and_jars, because we want to get this conversation going. Danushi, what are we planning for next week?
So next week, I will be show running the episode, and I think we're going to be discussing why are certain personality disorders more commonly diagnosed in women. Like, I don't really like,
or AFAB people,
exactly,
as well. I feel like that's something we should also talk about. Like, we're both non-binary.
Yeah.
We should have probably put this at the top of the show. My
But
pronouns
also we should.
My pronouns are they and she.
Mine are currently at she, they, but
who knows?
Like, who knows?
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's easy for us to use women as a shorthand for people affected by misogyny.
Yeah. And we'll try to get better at that, because we also accept the fact that we sometimes do a bit of misogyny, not necessarily intentional.
Honestly.
Yeah,
exactly. So hysteria, that's what we're going to be talking about next week.
Exactly. So join in for a spicy conversation, and I have a feeling that both of us are going to talk a lot about our mothers.
Oh no. Too soon.
Too soon.
So yeah, thank you everybody for listening. This has been Bell Hooks and Jars on Radio Fodder. I'm Sam.
And I'm Danushi. See you next week.
You can find our social media on Instagram at bell_hooks_and_jars. You can find me at Ruth_Butler.
And you can find me on dan.sushi.
And on Twitter, we are, Danushi is dan.sush1, and I'm Judith_Butler. Thank you so much for listening, guys. This is Bell Hooks and Jars on Radio Fodder with Sam and Danushi. Have a great week. Bye.
Mwah.